Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Katraki. Welcome to the Geometry Expectations video. I'm going to go through our expectations for this upcoming year. So these are the expectations for our Geometry CP1 class. Here's the Westford Academy mission statement. Westford Academy, in collaboration with the home community, provides a safe environment where high expectations advance academic excellence. We are committed to promoting integrity and critical thinking while fostering tolerance and lifelong learning in an ever-changing global society. That's the mission statement for the entire Westford Academy. I was on a committee that helped to write that one about 10 years ago, actually. In the next statement is our Westford Academy Honor Code. This is something that's even nearer and more dear to my heart. I co-authored this with another teacher who's no longer here. The Westford Academy Honor Code. As a member of the Westford Academy community, I will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor will I condone or enable those who do so. The first part of this statement is very simple. It's very cut and dry. I will not lie, cheat, or steal. There's no ambiguity there. There's no gray area. It is exactly what it says. There's no question what it means. It's the second part of this statement that is tricky. Nor will I condone or enable those who do so. What does that mean? That means a friend of yours comes up to you and says, I couldn't get to the vocab last night. Can I take a look at yours? I would argue that somebody asking you that is not really a friend of yours. They're putting you in a very awkward situation. Officially, you are supposed to say no. They're your friend. It's difficult to say no to a friend, but it's the right thing to do. It becomes even more tricky because you would then be enabling and condoning their cheating. What becomes really tricky is during an assessment, somebody is looking at your test or quiz. They're clearly cheating. They are in violation of the honor code. If you are not making some modicum of an effort to prevent them from seeing your answers, you are actually enabling and condoning enabling the cheating, not necessarily condoning it, but you are enabling the person to cheat. You are going to be in just as much trouble as they are. So that's very tricky. Now that we've moved into a new online assessments, this honor code becomes even more important in my mind. You are not allowed to discuss your assessments with any other students at all. You cannot tell them, I thought it was easy, I thought it was hard. If you tell somebody you think that it was easy, they might not study as hard. If you tell somebody that it was hard, they might not study as much. If you tell somebody exactly what topics are on the test, they might score better than they would have normally. That's great for them, but it makes your grade look worse because your grade comparison to them isn't as much higher as it normally would have been. So, Westford Academy Honor Code, very important. The second half is very tricky. All right, preparation. All students should come to class with the following materials. Laptop. You need to have your Chromebook and or personal device with you. It's got to be charged. We're going to be using it every class, whether you're in person or at home. You're going to have your laptop with you at all times. You're going to need a writing utensil. There will be times where you're going to be writing things down or calculating things on a piece of paper. You're also going to need a scientific calculator. For the most part, what we're going to be using for online software, there will be scientific calculators involved if you need one, but it's nice to have one in your hand. Sometimes it's even quicker if you have a scientific calculator in your hand. How do you know if a calculator is a scientific calculator? Typically, it will say scientific calculator on the front. If it doesn't, you're going to want to look for the buttons sine, cosine, tangent, abbreviated SIN, COS, and TAN. Those are going to indicate that it is a scientific calculator. Skeleton notes. This year you are going to be filling in skeleton notes. I provide you with skeleton notes that are going to require you to put definitions into them. I'm going to give you a word to define. You're going to have to look up the definition on in our online textbook. I'm going to give you postulates and theorems that you're going to have to look up in our online textbook, and you have to fill those in. Then there's a whole bunch of examples that you're going to have to attempt. Now, I provide you with an answer key to the skeleton notes. I also provide you with a video of me filling in the skeleton notes. You do not have to go through the whole video. You don't have to watch the whole video ever. You're going to fill in the skeleton notes to the best of your ability, and then you're going to check them with the answer key. Any ones that you get wrong, or any ones that you left blank because you couldn't figure out how to do, those are the only examples that you need to look at in the video that I created. So you do not have to watch the entire video. Some of them are rather long, some are very short, but you're only going to have to look at the parts of the video where you have problems. If you still don't understand the question, the example, or the concept in general, the next time we have class, that's when you're going to ask me about them. We are going to go through all the examples during class together as a group anyways, but when we get to one where you have a specific question, please raise your hand, whether that is in person or virtually, whether you're in Google Classroom or sitting in front of me at a desk. I want you to raise your hand and ask me. I really still don't understand what you mean about this particular problem. Okay, so skeleton notes will be given every class, and we'll be doing the next class, and unless you're told otherwise. There are some sections that are rather long that will require more than one class period for us to go through them. Students are expected to spend up to 30 minutes filling in the missing information. Skeleton notes are checked and graded on effort, not on the number of correct answers. I don't care if you get them right or wrong. Let me rephrase. I want you to get them right, but I'm not going to grade you on if they're right or wrong. I'm only going to grade you on the completeness and the effort that you put into doing the skeleton notes. If you just write out some random answers, you're not going to get credit for that. You do have to put in the effort of getting the information correct to the best of your ability. Now, given that you have an answer key and a video to follow along, you should be able to get them all correct. Each skeleton note assignment is worth 2 points, and I'll explain the point system in a few minutes. Questions on skeleton note problems may be asked during the following class, or it says after school, and I should rewrite that. In fact, I'm going to as soon as this video is done. Not after school, but in the extra help session, which is 140 to 155, and I'll get back to that section in a second. Bookwork assignments. So we have an online textbook, BigIdeasMath.com. I've made a whole video explaining how to use that. Find it in Google Classroom. I've also made a video of how to find things in Google Classroom. I also made a video on our plan book where you can find everything in the plan book as well and how to find it. So book assignments. You can get an actual physical textbook from me if you like. I don't hand out very many of them because the online textbook is far better. Bookwork will be given every class, and we'll be doing the next class unless you're told otherwise. Bookwork is checked and graded on effort, not on the number of correct answers. Again, you just have to get through them. And the beauty of the online textbook is you're going to get instant feedback, meaning the second you have finished a problem, you hit a button that actually says check answer, and it's going to tell you if you got it right or wrong. So I'm still not going to tell you how to do the problem if you get it wrong, but you're going to know if you've got it right or wrong. The beauty of doing these this way, you're going to be doing them in person with me. If you're in class, you're going to be right there physically in front of me. If you are in Google Meeting, you're going to be doing them online, but you can raise your hand and get my attention to ask me a question because I'm going to be right there in the Google Meeting with you. Okay. Each book assignment is worth up to 2 points. So your skeleton notes are worth 2 points. The bookwork assignment's worth 2 points. Combined, that's a total of 4 points for that section of homework or classwork, depending on where it is that you're doing it. Questions on bookwork problems may be asked during class or during the afternoon session. You can, if you're a Pod A student and you're meeting with me in person in the morning, Pod B students are meeting with me in the morning virtually through Google Meeting. And in the afternoon, Pod B students have to come to a half-an-hour session, a 30-minute session just for the Pod B students. Now, Pod A students, you are encouraged. If you still have questions from the morning, you can come to that 30-minute afternoon session, depending on what time it means. It's sometime between 12 and 1:30, I believe, the 3 half-hour sessions. So please come see me during during the half-hour session that our class has, and ask your questions. Whatever questions didn't get answered in the morning, feel free to come and ask me those questions in the afternoon half-hour session. Quizzes. Quizzes will usually be announced a week or 2 in advance. Actually, probably even more, because we do have an online plan book, and I've made a video of how to find that, how to use it, and where to get the information for the online plan book. I keep that plan book up to date. It's already filled out for most of the year, and you will have no surprises of what is coming up and when. Okay? Quizzes will cover new material from a few sections of the book. Each question is worth 4 points. So every question on a quiz is a 4-point question. Okay? So I use that point system. I told you that I'm going to explain it in a second. I'm going to. As soon as I finish reading this section, I will give you a visual example of what I mean by a point system. But every question on a quiz is a 4-point question. Partial credit will be given on problems when legitimate effort and work are shown. Quizzes will be corrected and graded out of the total number of points received out of the total number of points possible. Quizzes are never scaled. So I'm going to pause this video, and then I'm going to come back with my example for why I use points. So pause it. Okay, so here's an example of a student's quiz grades. Here are 6 quizzes that a student has taken and gotten graded. They got a 90, a 96, a 92, an 88, a 64, and a 90. Now, a couple things to mention here. One, if you look at these grades, clearly this is what we call an outlier in math and statistics. One could say this student had a bad day. This is not an indicator of what type of a student this is. This student is probably a 90 student, give or take, right? One would argue, and a lot of teachers would do this, let's just drop that grade. They had a bad day, let's just drop that grade. I don't drop grades, and let me show you why. Here's another student who has a 64, 68, 66, a 92, a 62, and a 60. We have an outlier again, the 92. Without that grade, this student is a 64 average, give or take. I'm just guessing as I look at that. One could argue that this student had a good day, and we should drop this grade. Well, no teacher and no student would ever drop this grade, and I'm not going to drop this one either for the exact same reason. You earn what you earn. But with a point system, it's possible that this grade becomes mitigated, meaning it's not as important as the other grades. It might be more important, we don't know. But let me give you this example. So first of all, what is the average of these 6 quizzes that this student has? Well, average, X bar, that's the symbol for mean in statistics. So the mean for these 6 quizzes is 86.6%. So this student is getting an 86. This student is not, or 87. This student is not an 87 student. This student's a 90 student. Look at their grades. They had a bad day, yes. But this student overall is a 90 student. Now, if we use the point system like I do, here are those same grades. 90 out of 100 points. 81 out of 84 points is a 96. 74 out of 80 points is a 92. Notice all these denominators are evenly divisible by 4 because every question on a quiz is a 4-point question. So this was the biggest quiz. They got 106 out of 120 possible points. They got an 88 on the big test, let's say. On this quiz, they got 13 out of 20. That's a 64. On this one, they got 90 out of 100 again. Okay? Now, if you add up all the denominators and add up all the possible points that they earned. So the possible points adds up to 504. The actual points that they earned was 454 points that they earned. When this student gets their grade, they get a 91% or 90%. Let's think back. When we looked at this student's grades in the beginning, we said this student is a 90 student. This didn't work out to be a 90. It works out to be almost 4 points lower. It's 3 points, almost 4 points lower. This student, using the point system, gets the 90. Why? Because this 64 was only possibly worth 20 points out of the 504 points that they had in that term. That's not a lot of points. Now, this isn't a perfect system. It's not going to give you a miracle A, because what if the 64 was on the assessment that had 120 points and the 96 was on the assessment that had only 20 points? Well, then this grade is going to be significantly lower because they did poorly on a really big assessment. So the bigger the assessment, the more weight it's going to have. It's a weighted system. Bigger the assessment, the more points it's worth, the more weight it carries, the more it's going to affect your grade. Okay, so I'm going to pause it again and go back to the expectations. That's my points system. So that was the tests, the quizzes. Now let's move on to tests. Tests will be given at the end of each chapter. Tests will be announced approximately a week in advance. Again, they're probably going to be announced 2, maybe even 3 weeks in advance on the online plan book. As long as you're checking the online plan book, there will be no surprises as to when things are coming up and when things are due. Tests will cover any material from class lectures, homeworks, and quizzes. Each question will be worth 4 points again, so every question on any assessment is a 4-point question the whole year. Partial credit will be given on problems when legitimate effort and work are shown. Tests will be corrected and graded on the number of points received out of the total number of points possible. Test grades are never scaled. Class participation. Class participation is made up of your attitude and effort in class. Class participation also includes conduct in class and online. If you are in a Google meeting with me, the expectation that you would have in a classroom is the exact same behavior expectation that you have in a Google meeting. If something's not appropriate in class, it's not appropriate in Google meeting. Any sort of disruptions, any sort of misbehaving, is going to require discipline. Students will demonstrate proper conduct at all times. All students will be expected to abide by the Digital Citizen Contract. You're going to be signing the Digital Citizen Contract in homerooms, either the first or second week of school. Failure to do so will result in a teacher detention. Continued misconduct will result in the student being sent to into the dean's office, and when necessary, a call will be made to the parents or legal guardians. Extra help. I mentioned this briefly in the beginning. Extra help will be given by appointment. You need to let me know that you're going to be logging on, otherwise I'm not going to log on and see that you're there. Between 1:40 and 1:55 Monday through Friday, you must inform me ahead of time that you're planning on logging in. Use Google Meet code Quattrocchi Extra Help, all one word. I believe the capitals don't matter. I capitalized it here so it's a little bit easier to see it. Grading policy for report cards. Students' grades will be calculated on the total number of points earned out of the total number of points possible on homeworks, quizzes, and tests in the term. I've already showed you the example of how that works. Typically, in my honors class, we get about 700 points in a term. In the CP1 class, we get 500 to 600 points in a term. So it gives you a roundabout idea of how much something has for weight. Technology. All course materials will be posted on Google Classroom, BigIdeasMath.com, and Planbook.com weeks before any due dates. Now, you can see that these are hot links, Easter eggs. If you click on them, they're going to bring you to the videos I created of how to use or how to find Google Classroom material in my class, BigIdeasMath.com material, how to use the interface with BigIdeasMath.com. I walk you through it. I walk you through the login, creating it on the account, and getting into the textbook and how to use the online problems. And same thing for Planbook. How do you find the information that's going to be up and coming in Planbook? Students will be using their Chromebooks every day in class. Therefore, they must be charged before each class. The online app Kahoot will occasionally be used. Students will need permission from their parents or legal guardian to create an account. Now, you've probably used Kahoot before. Kahoot's a great little online program. I've used it a handful of times. I've got some Kahoots that I will use every now and then throughout the year. But a Kahoot, from what I've been told, collects personal information. So you're going to need your parent or legal guardian's permission. And by signing off on this expectation, which you're going to do in Google Classroom, you click I have read, understand, and accept the expectations for this class. You are accepting that your son, daughter, or whoever the student can use the Kahoot program, which they've probably used in the past, back in middle school, or even last year in 9th grade. Masks. Masks will be worn at all times during in-person classes. Students are encouraged to take their passing time as a mask break outside of the building at their own discretion. If a mask break is needed during class, students will ask for permission to leave to go to a mask break designated interior areas, which are in the flag lobby, the bell lobby, or outdoors. I believe you're going to be allowed to go outside even during the class time. Weather permitting, you might just want to go to the flag lobby or to the bell lobby. Bell lobby, probably equally close to where my classroom is. Bell lobby, flag lobby might be a little bit closer. But if you need to take a mask break, feel free to say, just raise your hand, can I go take a mask break? I'll give you the thumbs up, and you can head out to the flag lobby. Students will sit in assigned seats at all times. I'm going to have where you're supposed to sit. You're going to have assigned seats, and that's where you're going to have to sit. The seats are 6 feet apart, and you're going to have to stay in them at all times. Google Meet expectations. All remote students, both RLA, Remote Learning Academy, and Pod A/B, depending on what week it is, will join the synchronous live classroom presentation in the morning via Google Meet by clicking on the Meet link in Google Classroom. In the Classroom video, I show you where that Meet link is located. So every morning that we have an in-person class, so if you're in Pod A and we're Pod A in person, the RLAs are going to be there, and the Pod B students will also be required to be there in the morning. Now, Pod B students, you're going to get an extra half-hour session in the afternoon that you can ask questions at that time. RLAs, you're welcome to join us in that afternoon 30-minute session. Same with the Pod A's. The next week it flips. Pod B's, you're going to be in person, and the Pod A's and the RLAs will be required to log on to the Google Meet in the morning session. And in the afternoon session, the Pod A's, you will be required, the attendance will be taken, will be required to come to the 30-minute session in the afternoon. Others you can if you want, but for whatever pod is remote that week, you are required to go in the afternoon. So depending on the Pod A, Pod B, students are also required to join the meeting in the afternoon. Students will mute themselves unless called on by the teacher. As you're coming into Google Meet, you want to already have it muted. Unless I'm calling on you, have it muted. Otherwise, you're going to have multiple conversations going on at the same time. There are no side conversations allowed during the Google Meet. It just gets a ton of background noise. It is counterproductive. Make sure that you are muted. To ask a question, click on the hand raise button. There's a hand raise button in Google Meet. The first time we have a Google Meet, I'll show it to you. You can practice with it. Or type a question into the chat. My plan is to have somebody monitoring the chat, the Google Meet chat, and that person will inform me at an appropriate time that there is a question. What that question is, hopefully I'll be able to answer it. It's recommended that students have earbuds or a headset with a microphone. So you can have headphones in, but headphones that have a microphone attached to them, the Apple AirPods, earbuds, or the Apple AirPods, those are excellent. Gaming headphones with the microphone that comes down around phone, those are very good. Very unlikely that you guys have your own microphone, separate dedicated microphone like I have here. If you do, that's great, use it. The microphones on your laptops are okay. they're not great. They're going to pick up a lot of background noise. We're not going to be able to hear you if you're distanced away from the laptop. So it's best to have one of those earbuds with microphone attached. Those are excellent. No one will record any Google meeting without permission. I'm not going to record a Google meeting without a permission from you, and you are most definitely not going to record any Google meeting of any of us. A couple other things about Google meetings you're going to want to know. I will occasionally use sign language. This means thank you. Okay? Left-handed, right-handed, doesn't matter. From the chin, closed fingers, palm flat, out means thank you. Okay? Sometimes it goes into the hand, but you don't have to. This means thank you. This means sorry. Okay? This means repeat. Do that again. More? Can you do that again? I don't know what you mean. Say that again. I can't hear you. Okay? Speak again. I can't hear you. Okay? These stop. These are just some basic signs that I've learned over the years that I will occasionally use. You do not need to know sign language, but there are some things that you're going to want to know. Yes, no, sorry, thank you, repeat or more. Okay? Things of that nature. But that's about it for our Google meetings. The rest we're going to figure out as we go. The course on which you're about to begin is one that I hope you will find fun, exciting, and powerful. I wish you well on this year's journey. Thank you very much, students. I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye.